Good evening, everyone. I say evening. I'm actually going live at 22 minutes in the AM. So it's in fact good morning to anyone watching in the UK, which I don't expect there to be. It's very late. And I apologize for the lateness of this stream as well. I'm actually 22 minutes late to when I had this scheduled. Reason being is that I was actually meant to be reviewing this with my buddy Dale tonight. If any of you have seen my review of the Batman, which I think was one of the first videos that I did on the channel. Hell, it might have even been the first video that I did on this channel. He's like, he knows everything there is to know about DC, especially when it comes to Batman. And we're both really big Michael Keaton Batman fans. I'm repping my Michael Keaton Batman shirt, Batman '89 shirt, in special occasion for today. And he was meant to be joining me, but unfortunately, he's got work early tomorrow morning, and he just couldn't make the time to get over here to sit down and review it with me. So I will persevere, and I will try and get this review done and try and echo some of his sentiments as well, because we chatted a little bit after the film had finished, not massively in depth, so I expect we'll probably be having conversations throughout the rest of the week. So it's a shame he couldn't be on tonight, but I'll do all I can to talk about The Flash, which of course is the latest and kind of the last gasping dying breath of the DCU or the DCEU, whatever it was called. It's directed by Andy Muschietti. Not really familiar with any of his work. I believe he did It Chapter 2, I think. I might be mistaken about that. But yeah, and stars Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, and Ben Affleck. It's kind of like a whole hodgepodge Flashpoint paradox multiversal film. And I swear to God, I'm getting so multiversed out at the moment. It seems like every single superhero property, I mean, they're all in competition with each other anyway, aren't they? You've got Sony, you've got Marvel, you've got DC. They're all trying to get a piece of the action, and multiverses are in apparently at the moment. What with the Spider-Verse films, the animated ones, you had No Way Home, which was multiverse. You've got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. You've got all these different iterations of stuff. And now DC are doing multiverse stuff. So I'm kind of over it at this point. Had this been any other film, I probably wouldn't have gone to have seen it. Literally the only reason that I decided to go and see this film is because my boy Michael Keaton, my boy Batman. That's the only reason. Michael Keaton's Batman were the first superhero films I ever watched as a kid. I've probably met, if you're no stranger to the channel, you've probably heard me tell this story before. I was about 6 years old, and we had the cassette tape of Batman '89, and it had the big red 15 rated certificate on the outside. And I remember just being somewhat drawn to it. I don't know why. Maybe it was written in the stars. Maybe it was fate. And I just kept, I was really little. I was really, really little. I must have been about 6, 5 or 6, something like that, probably 6. And I remember picking up this video cassette tape and just begging my mom to let me watch this video. And she was like, no, not until you're old enough. It's a 15. You're not old enough. And I begged and begged and begged. And she said, fine, but if you get nightmares, it's on you. And I watched it and I instantly fell in love from the first opening few bars of Danny Elfman's score to the characters, the Joker and Batman, and how cool he was. And then later that was followed by Batman the Animated Series, which of course I watched when I was a kid. Love me some Batman. And that is why Batman is my favorite, not only superhero, he is my favorite fictional character in fictional history. That includes novels, that includes everything going back to storytelling from the goddamn cave paintings. He is my favorite fictional character ever created, and I find his world fascinating. And Michael Keaton is my favorite live action depiction of Batman. Have there been other good depictions of Batman? Have there been more comic accurate depictions of Batman? Probably. Christian Bale is often a good shout. I was never too keen on his Batman, though. I thought he played a very good Bruce Wayne, but I was never keen on his Batman. I actually really like Robert Pattinson, and I think once we've got a complete trilogy of those films and we've got a character arc of Batman, hopefully if it's done well, then I think he could go down as one of the best ones as well. But as it stands now, there's something about Michael Keaton. His performance of both Bruce Wayne and Batman, I both very much enjoyed. And it was, when I heard he was coming back for this, that was it. It was a done deal. This, to me, is a Flash film in name only. To me, this is almost like the third entry in the Tim Burton trilogy, which isn't quite that. which we'll get into when I get into the review. But I really wasn't looking forward to this film. I'm probably going to get the DC fanboys hunting me down with pitchforks and flaming torches, but I hate the Snyderverse. I absolutely hate it. I thought Man of Steel was absolutely dreadful. Thought Batman versus Superman was even worse for myriad of reasons. I didn't mind the first Wonder Woman film, actually. I will say that. I know that wasn't directed by Zack Snyder, but it was still part of that universe. And then just everything else along with that just completely shit the bed. Suicide Squad was awful. Aquaman. Yeah, shit. Like Wonder Woman was the only tolerable film, I think, out of all the ones that they've made. And it's, to me, it's just a huge waste of potential because Henry Cavill, I thought, was a great choice for Superman. Like the casting for all of these characters, I don't think has ever been the problem. JX says, "You are not going to Flashes, are you?" No. I mean, it technically is. It is after hours, isn't it? So maybe. I'm not. No, we're not going to go there. Maybe if I created an OnlyFans, maybe I'll just get on the trend like everyone else does. Yeah, so like the casting of the Snyderverse has never been a problem to me. Maybe with the exception to Jason Momoa as Aquaman. I never really thought he played a good Arthur Curry. But anyway, we get to the Flash. I guess I need to address the Ezra in the room right here because how this film. Well, I know why this film was released because Warner Brothers had probably sunk millions into it in the production at that juncture, and I believe when Ezra Miller's committed like every goddamn crime there is, he's just going like straight up GTA out there. He's what's he done? Is it like grievous bodily harm or something? He's assaulted someone, burglary. What else has he done? He's done like a whole bunch of stuff, and it was all like in quick succession. The dude was unhinged. He was like stalking people. I thought he'd like created a cult or something. I heard. I know there was a whole bunch of stuff. Like you can read it out. He's like he's like confessed to it as well. If I'd have committed a fraction of the stuff that he's done, I'd be in jail. I'd be behind bars. But because he's Hollywood and they all look out for each other, and he's probably got some dirt, he's probably got some dirt on someone and they don't want to see him get arrested because he might squeal, and he's probably seen a lot of shit in Hollywood. Hell, he's committed a lot of shit. And it's absolutely despicable that he is still allowed to go free and act and make projects. But after this film, I don't think you're going to see him in much. I don't think the Fantastic Beasts films are going to continue. Well, they've mentioned that these DC films in the current form that they're in, the DCEU aren't going to continue in this way. They're getting rebooted with James Gunn, which makes these last few films all the more pointless. What with Shazam 2, which absolutely flopped, no one went to see. Black Adam, which no one went to see. It's really funny to me, actually. All these DC fanboys are just blowing up YouTube comment sections and Twitter and whatnot, death threats, loving their DC products. Yet there's no asses in seats. No one's going to see these movies. It's hilarious to me. Where were all the people that went to Justice League? Where were all the people that went to... apparently people went to Aquaman, but every other DC film, like, no one goes to see. It's hilarious. Yeah, they talk a good, they blow up Twitter and talk a good game on their keyboard warriors. But I remember when Ezra Miller was doing like all of this dodgy shit. The production history of this film is fascinating. I was reading a bit about it, and there's a lot of it's on Wikipedia. You can find it elsewhere as well. This would make a fascinating documentary about all of this because it seems like everything was against this film being made. This film was originally slated to come out in 2018. Not a lot of people remember that. When DC was like trying to put all of its slate together and trying to catch up with Marvel, they released an initial graphic, and I think it was like 2020 there was going to be a Green Lantern film. We were going to have Justice League Part 1, Part 2. We were going to have a Flash movie. We were going to have a Cyborg movie. All of these films that have never seen the light of day, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, this was meant to be coming out in 2018 when it was in its original form, and it's been moved from pillar to post, directors dropping out left, right, and center, page one rewrites. I believe this film at one point had about 45 writers on it, in total from its original draft to the final product that we have now. And actually, I think from a script writing standpoint, it's trying to do a lot. It's trying to be a Flash film. It's trying to be a Flash origin film, because we've never really had that. Even in all the other he's cameoed in all the other films. He's been in Justice League. We've seen him cameo in a few other ones. But we've never had an all-out origin for him, really. So it's trying to do that. So it's trying to be a Flash movie. It's also trying to be a multiverse film. It's also trying to be a Batman film, like a Batman 3, Tim Burton Batman 3. You've also got Supergirl in there. It's trying to balance so much, and it doesn't quite hit a home run on any of those functions, as far as I'm concerned, which we'll get into in the review in a second. But Ezra Miller is... I remember the studio kind of gave him an ultimatum, and they had 3 possible ways of going about this film, because they were so far in production. They'd spent millions, they'd spent bank on this movie at this point. And they said if Ezra Miller publicly acknowledged that he was going to get professional help, then they would make him do limited press for the film, but they would still go ahead with the film. If he refused to get help, then they wouldn't have him do any press for the film. And if things got worse, and if things got escalated and his crimes kept racking up even more, then they would take the hard decision and pull the film completely and cut their losses. And it's interesting because we've had a couple of other DC projects which have fallen to the wayside. One of which was a character in this film, which was Supergirl. There was originally going to be a Supergirl film that was cancelled, probably because it was just going to be absolute, woke nonsense, absolute garbage. That could be one of the reasons, or they could have said, well, it's probably not going to make much. We're going to reboot it anyway later down the line. But I think that was deleted before the reboot news came out with James Gunn, although talks were probably already being had at that point, I would imagine. And Batgirl was also cancelled, which would have been the first appearance of Michael Keaton's Batman, which is very interesting because how this film frames it, this feels like a really good reintroduction to his character. Well, we're going to have a point about that. I don't like the first few scenes that we see of Michael Keaton in this film, but in terms of reintroducing him into this world, it makes sense to do it through this film, through this multiverse film. But he was going to appear in Batgirl, which was going to be very strange. And I remember reading at the time that they were kind of touting Michael Keaton to be the new Batman of the DCEU when they were still trying to make it work. Ben Affleck had got screwed around by them so much and probably realized what an absolutely steaming turd he was a part of and wanted out of there and had retired the character. So the new, Henry Cavill was gone and was not sure whether he wanted to come back at that point. Then through Black Adam, he said he was going to come back, and then all of a sudden he was fired, which was awfully managed how that whole thing went down. But they didn't know if he was going to come back, and it was looking likely that he probably wasn't going to come back. So they needed a new Superman. And I believe, I don't know if it was the original draft of this film, but certainly the whole universe was going to be reset, and by the end of it you were going to have Michael Keaton's Batman as the new Batman, and you were going to have Supergirl as the new Superman like figure. It was either going to be Batgirl was going to be the main Batman, or it was going to be Michael Keaton. I forget, but I swear I read that somewhere. Ezra Miller is a horrible, despicable human being, if he is even a human being. And he is a terrible Flash. He's a terrible Barry Allen. And I've always said that. I think he's been horrifically miscast since day one. He is obnoxious. I hate his performance as the Flash. And it's no different in this film. In fact, it's worse because we've got 2 of them. The annoying, socially awkward kind of side of him just really isn't endearing to me and is just kind of irritating. And this is coming from a socially awkward person. I hate his depiction. I really do. The jokes fall flat to me. There's some really, really bad humor in there, which, I mean, apparently everyone else in my cinema screening was finding funny, like the dumbest shit, and they were just laughing their asses off. So I don't know. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. The jokes just there was a few jokes that got a chuckle out of me. There was one at the very end which includes a cameo, which I had a reaction to. That was about it. There weren't many other lines really throughout the film that made me laugh. This feels so tired, and this feels like a film that's been pulled from pillar to post, which it has done. It feels like an absolute hodgepodge mishmash of ideas, and never quite doubles down on any of those ideas that it's bringing to the table. It kind of fails as an origin story for the Flash because we're already so many films in with the Flash, and his family has been completely recast. I think his father in Justice League was played by Billy Crudup, I think his name is, if I remember rightly. Recast in this film because of work commitments, or probably because he just didn't want to come back for it. So his father's been recast and is, I believe, a completely different ethnicity. His mom, I don't know if we've seen his mom before in any of the other things, but his mom's Hispanic. When was Barry Allen's mom Hispanic? So that was weird. I'm not sure if the one who plays Iris in this film was recast as well from the Justice League film. Zack Snyder's Justice League. I can't remember if she's been recast. She looked like she'd been recast, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not sure. So it fails in that respect to me as an origin story. And then there's an antagonist problem in this film as well. The antagonist is just in a handful of scenes and never feels very threatening. Yeah, you've got General Zod coming back, and there's a few cameos from characters coming back from the likes of Man of Steel, which isn't even a spoiler because I feel like the trailers have spoiled this film anyway. And I don't know how much of that was new material with Michael Shannon. There was a few scenes, I think, but I think a lot of it is just repurposed, and a lot of it is CGI, which brings me on to one of my biggest criticisms in the film, and I think a lot of people are criticizing this as well. The visual effects in this film are some of the, and I'm not just saying this, genuinely some of the worst CGI I've seen in a long time, maybe in ever. This is some straight up Scorpion King kind of stuff from Mummy Returns, if not worse. Genuinely, if not worse, because it lingers on it so much more, and it's all throughout the film. It's everywhere. There's whenever the Flash is turning back time, and he's in like the time vortex. It's almost like how it's visualized is he's in the center and he's reversing time, right, and he's doing his stupid arm throwing run, and he's running backwards. And I think that is actually from the comic book, so I can't complain about that too much. I think to reverse time, he runs backwards. And he's in like this ball in like the middle of this. It almost looks like an amphitheater. It almost looks like he's in the middle of the Colosseum. And around the outside, CGI versions of all people from past events in his life at like key moments. But it's this really low rendered, plastic, genuinely like PS2 cutscene. It's awful, really, really fucking bad, to the point where I don't know how this got quality tested. I don't know how someone watched this back and was like, that's good enough to feature in a 2023 feature film, which is done on a budget of 220 million, probably even more than that. This thing was reshot to hell and back. Apparently the original cut for this film was 4 hours. I can't even imagine a 4-hour cut of this film. I think I'd like probably fucking hang myself if I had to watch a 4-hour cut of this film. This film's been like scrapped, chopped, changed, Frankenstein together into this absolute monstrosity of a Flashpoint film, but it's not proper Flashpoint, and it's trying to do a multiverse thing, but it even fails in the whole multiverse side of things. There's a few cameo. I guess I might be drifting into spoilers here a little bit, but there's cameos from other Supermen and a few other Batman worlds and stuff like that. But I think a lot of that's already been spoiled anyway, or is already public knowledge. And it all feels very cheap. And all of it's done in a computer. All of it's done in the computer. This isn't your equivalent of No Way Home, even, which is a multiverse film that came out relatively recently and did a way better job than this film. So once again, DC, late to the party, trying to do anything, and when they do it, it's always inferior. And in that film, when Tobey Maguire showed up and Andrew Garfield, it was a big fucking deal, and they're actually there. Um, Whereas this one, they're just like really low rendered quality. Granted, you got like spoiler alert, got one bit where like Christopher Reeve shows up, but it's CGI. Obviously, Christopher Reeve isn't with us anymore, so that checks out. But Christ Almighty, the CGI is terrible. It all looks like a video game, like a really bad video game as well. It Words can't express how bad it looks. The opening of this film's terrible as well. So it opens on an action beat where we just see something's going down in Gotham City. There's a sinkhole that's opened up, and it's this building's collapsing, and Superman's trying to stop a volcano somewhere. Somewhere in a foreign land, and we just see it on like a TV monitor, and he's like CGI Superman flying around. We just see the red cape because we can't get Henry Cavill back for this thing. And it's like, well, where's Wonder Woman? It's like, oh, she's busy. Oh, Aquaman's doing something else. Oh, Cyborg, we pissed off the actor and we can't get him back for this film. Who's left? There's Batman. There's Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck must have done like a day of shooting on this film, maybe two. He's barely in this film. The trailers make it feel like he's part of the final act, and you're going to have Ben Affleck Batman and Michael Keaton Batman on screen together, and you never get that. Ben Affleck's pretty much in the intro, very, very briefly, and he's out of the film. He shows up a couple of other times, very, very briefly as Bruce Wayne. But as Batman, you get him a little bit in the intro, and half of that time is just going to be his stunt double. I bet he was in a handful of close-ups, a day's worth of shooting in front of a green screen, and he's done. So Barry Allen, the Flash, has to run from. There's some really weird continuity with this as well, with the Flash's powers. So they talk about this thing, how he's got to keep eating, and I think that's something from Justice League. He's got to keep eating because when he runs, his metabolism's super fast and he gets really tired, and he has to keep his energy up, so he has to eat loads of high calorie food. And he goes into a sandwich shop, and the person who usually has his sandwich ready isn't there, so there's a trainee, and he's making the sandwich very slowly, right? So Barry's like, oh, this big thing's going down and I'm running out of energy and I need this food now. So he runs off, and he runs from Central City to Gotham City. Now, this is in real time now. He stops in Gotham City. This building's collapsing, and it's a nursery full of babies. And it's like, not the babies. And this sinkhole opens up, and the building starts collapsing, and all the babies and like the midwife fall out of the window, and it's honestly some of the worst CGI you'll ever fucking see. And you've got all these like creepy, uncanny valley CGI doll-like babies falling in slow motion, and everything's in slow motion. And I know this is like the Quicksilver thing from Days of Future Past. I know that it's probably very difficult to visualize the Flash in terms of his powers and show things that are happening in relation to him, because obviously everything would be in slow-mo. But when the Flash is doing everything in slow-mo, it doesn't make me feel like he's a fast character. I know in the moment, and yeah, again, they did this with Quicksilver in all of the X-Men films, not just Days of Future Past. They tried to up the ante each time, didn't they? And the CGI got worse and worse and worse by the time we got to Dark Phoenix. But he doesn't make me feel like he's a fast character. And he's trying to stop all these babies from dying, basically. And as they're all in free fall, each one's like got a problem, like something's about to happen that will kill that baby. There's one baby that's falling next to a propane tank or something like that, and the propane tank's about to explode. You've got another baby, and there's all this like shrapnel and like scalpels and stuff that are like flying towards the baby. You've got all these things happening with all these different babies. So he has to try. He's low on his calories because he hasn't had his sandwich yet, and he's running around, and he puts like a baby in a microwave, which counts as saving it. I really hope people don't go around putting babies in microwaves, by the way, after watching this film. No one's going to go and see this film. He knocks the scalpels away. He does that. He gets all the babies lined up, and the CGI is terrible, and it keeps putting the babies front and center on screen. and it's so bad. I kept turning to Dale, my mate. I was like, "This is in 2023." And the thing is, I can't complain at the visual effects department because if I remember rightly, I read somewhere that this film was going like horrifically over budget, and the reason for the inconsistency in the visual effects is because I think they laid so many people off. I also get the impression that Warner Brothers just wanted this movie out. It seemed like everything was against this film. All of the directors dropping out, creative differences, Ezra Miller being a complete monster, COVID happened, just everything was against this movie and was delaying, which and then they were probably trying to cut some corners as well, maybe to try and save a bit of cash because as I say, the budget for this film is 220 million. Then you've got to kind of double that for marketing. I don't know if that budget's also including the reshoots as well. This is an expensive fucking movie. To make its money back, this is going to have to make like 700, 800 million before it starts breaking even, I guarantee. And apparently, yeah, like there were so many visual effects shots in this film, so many visual effects in the film that I guess the team just couldn't handle it. And if it's the same team that's also, I'm not sure if it is, if it's the same team that's also trying to work on Aquaman 2, um, and if this film and the development of this film keeps chopping and changing and they changing their ideas and stuff like that, and the visual effects department's having to work from the ground up each time, CGI is going to look terrible. And you see that in some really big budget films as well. I mean, this is a big budget film, but other big budget films where there might be one set piece that has fantastic CGI, which has been given the time and the money that it deserves. And then within the same film, there's some terrible CGI, and that's because it's been rushed or because it was a last minute addition, and the visual effects department haven't had the resources or time to get it looking good. And that's the case of this whole movie. A lot of the characters' antics in this film are all CGI. There's moments where it looks like Ezra Miller's face has just been superimposed on a CGI body. Everything looks very weightless and there's no tension in the action scenes. It feels like I'm just watching a really bad video game. You've got Supergirl who's doing all of the crazy zipping around, punching people shit like in Man of Steel. And even Michael Keaton Batman, if you watch how he fights, and granted, I guess it was kind of the limitations at the time in 89 and when Batman Returns came out, when you see him fight there, it's quite clunky. It's quite visceral. It's, just quite meat potatoes kind of fighting, really. And then you see him doing this, and granted, I know it's 30 years on, 40 years on, actually, almost, getting towards it, Jesus. And he's zipping around, and he's CGI, and he's doing all of these crazy antics that we've never seen him do before. And this is old man Batman. How old is Michael Keaton now? I should probably just check this. Is it to make me really depressed? Dude's 71 years old. And he's doing crazy shit in this that he couldn't even do when he was in his 30s. So yeah, it is cool to see Batman. It is cool to see Batman. There is a caveat to that though. Oh, anyway, no, I didn't finish my point with the continuity. My brain's absolutely fried today. I've been up for a long time. So the Flash is like saving all of these babies, right? He saves all the babies. Meanwhile, Ben Affleck Batman is in a new suit. The suit looks terrible. When you see it in close up, when it's far away, it's not too bad. When you see it up close, it's a really questionable suit. But we see him on the Bat bike. You see this in the trailer. The Bat bike's actually really fucking cool, and it feels like proper comic book Batman. It's got all the gadgets. It's got all the bells and whistles on it. I just think it's a really cool design. I'd even go as far to say that it's the coolest Bat bike that we've had in all of the films. I think it's better than the Bat Pod that we had in the Dark Knight trilogy. And I think it's better than the new Bat bike that we've had. I really, really thought it was cool. There's some cool action in there. Ben Affleck Batman doing his thing in his prime through the streets of Gotham on his bike. Everything's in broad daylight, though, so it's kind of weird to see Gotham in broad daylight. It makes the costumes look a lot more cheap and a lot more sort of like Halloween, thrift store kind of costumes that they've thrown on. And it's all very. It actually felt a lot like oh god, who was the director? Richard Lester. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Who did Superman 2? the very tongue-in-cheek, slapsticky kind of, "Oh no, the nursery is about to collapse. The Flash, help, save us!" And then Batman's chasing down these terrorists that have a briefcase with a virus in it that, if it gets out, could destroy half of Gotham if it falls into water or something like that. And he's trying to stop that. Okay, this is spoiler alert now. Then Wonder Woman shows up and saves them, and Gal Gadot gets her little cameo, and she's got her, you know, that theme kicks in again. It's not her Zack Snyder Justice League one where it was like, you know, it's none of that. It's the proper theme that she had originally. And she saves them, and then the Flash is like, "Okay, we're done here, guys," and he runs off back to the sandwich store, and the guy's still making his sandwich, and he goes, "There you go. That didn't take so long now, did it?" And I'm like, how this scene is framed for that punchline to work is if Flash did all of this in fast time. He raced to the other place. He zipped around and saved everyone in the building and then ran straight back in the blink of an eye, and then he got given his sandwich. That's how that joke works. But he was doing things in real time. Yeah, he did use his fast motion here and there when he was, you know, running around saving CGI babies from a CGI building. But then he was having full-blown stop conversations with Wonder Woman and Batman in real time. So the dude would have made his sandwich about 100 times over, and he would have turned around and gone like, "Where the fuck is he?" It doesn't work. That whole joke and continuity editing there really didn't work for me. It was strange. Okay, let's get on to the real reason that I went to see this film. Let's talk about Michael Keaton. Was it cool to see Michael Keaton back again? Yeah. I mean, this was a dream come true, especially with some of these multiverse films. I guess it does give you the freedom to do that. And it is nostalgia and it is member berries, but if it's done well, then it can be great. Tobey Maguire coming back for No Way Home, for example, was amazing. And I think it furthered the character and it felt true to his character. And he was more of the mentor, Peter Parker out of the group of them. And it offered me closure. Was it perfect? Probably not. Did I have a really good time at the cinema at it? Yeah. And I never thought I'd get to see Tobey Maguire Spider-Man ever again. I always wanted Spider-Man 4, and I know that originally Sam Raimi had all 6 planned out, and it was going to be great. And I love those films. And then when it was cancelled, I never thought we'd get it again. And I always held out hope. So to see Tobey Maguire again as Spider-Man really, really hit me hard with that film. And it was great. And then when I heard that Michael Keaton was coming back, I was cautiously optimistic, but I was ecstatic. I was like, would I have preferred Tim Burton to come back and direct a Batman 3? Absolutely, I would. But just the chance to see my favorite Batman again in the costume, Michael Keaton's so great, just doing what he does best, is an absolute treat. And I do feel really bad for him, actually, because he was meant to be in Batgirl, and then that got shit canned and that got cancelled. And I think, wasn't this? I mean, this film was messed around as well. But I had a feeling he was going to come back in another one as well, which also got cancelled. And it just felt like every single pitfall with this film, he just wasn't getting. It's a big deal, you know. He's back in the Batsuit. It's one of the biggest films from the 80s, and he's back. And it seemed like every attempt to bring him back was just either discontinued or, you know, shit canned straight away. When we're first introduced to him in this film, I will say they've recreated Wayne Manor almost perfectly, even down to things like the dining room. Yeah, you know, where he's sitting at each end of the table with Kim Basinger in the first movie, and she's like, "Could you pass the salt?" That really long dining room with the table, they've recreated that. There's the little side kitchen as well, where he then goes with Vicky Vale after he says, like, "Do you want to get out of here?" And they go to that little side kitchen where Alfred's sort of reminiscing about a young Bruce Wayne. They've recreated that kitchen as well as the Batcave, of course. So all of that stuff was great. When we're first introduced to Michael Keaton, it plays into that trope again. It's the Jake Skywalker thing from The Last Jedi, how he's a beaten down hobo down on his luck, doesn't want to be Batman anymore. Beard, grizzled, unkempt. He's wearing like a cardigan and sandals with no socks. And it's weird. It's really weird. And he's doing all like these ninja things from the chandelier and knocking out Barry Allen. And it looks terrible. It's like this really crappy beard that's stuck onto Michael Keaton and this long unkempt hair. And the reason is, Gotham's a paradise now. Gotham's a utopia. That there is no crime in Gotham at all. I was like, really? No crime? No crime at all? I don't. It feels almost like how we see Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises. How he's just stopped being Batman and he's just like really old and grizzled all of a sudden. And I'm like, you do realize that you are still a billionaire playboy CEO of a company, right? You can't just go off the map like that. You get the impression that he doesn't have anyone. Alfred's gone, and yeah, he's just the one, which is really weird now when you think about it. I guess, well, the ending kind of spells this out for me, but the Val Kilmer and George Clooney Batman films, are they technically meant to still be in the continuity of the Tim Burton ones? Because Gotham looks completely different, but you still have Michael Gough as Alfred, and you still have Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon. Or is it a multiverse? I guess by the end of it, we find out that it's a multiverse. So I think for Michael Keaton's first entry back on the screen from his first couple of scenes, it's terrible because he's not playing Bruce Wayne. He's not playing the Bruce Wayne / Batman that we know. When he gets in the suit and he's back in the game, that's when we get him. And I think it was because I just hate that trope. I hate that trope of the down and out fucking hero that doesn't want to do anything anymore, and then someone's got to get him back in the game. It's been done to death, and it's a story trope I'm so bored of. And I think I've been jaded with by the likes of The Last Jedi, chief among them, where they just take these great heroes and they just fucking ruin them and make them miserable and just terrible and down on their luck. And that's not what we want. That's not what we want. And that's not what I wanted from my Batman. But anyway, eventually, when he gets in the suit, are there a lot of member berries in there with it? Yeah, it's cool seeing the Batmobile again. It's cool seeing the Bat computer. What I'll say is Bruce Wayne hasn't upgraded his software or his computer system since '89. It's exactly the same. All of these decades on, he's never upgraded it. It's cool seeing the Batwing again. It's cool hearing the Danny Elfman music again when he shows up, because that's Batman to me. That is Batman. I'm not too keen on the new suit. It kind of, I suppose it fits for what it is. I do miss, this is a really major nitpick. I miss the yellow utility belt. I think it looks weird without it. And I think it looks weird in vivid lighting as well. This film's quite bright, and they've probably gone with that idea because they wanted to try and break away from all like the desaturated, miserable, dark Snyderverse stuff and brighten it up and make it a bit more campy and a bit more fun. But the Batsuit does look awkward in highlighting, I will say that. And Michael Keaton's doing all of this crazy stuff, as I've mentioned, that you see in the trailer, where he's flipping around and he's dodging bullets and he's zipping around, zip, zap, zoop. And it's like, he never did this even when he was in his prime. So how is he doing this now? There's lines in there like, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. And, how much do you weigh, when he's putting them on the grappling gun thing. So there's a bunch of bits like that where it's like, yeah, okay, that's from the other thing. But I don't know. There were moments where the Batman, it's the power of music. I'm telling you, that Danny Elfman theme, when that Batman music kicked in, it was pure nostalgia. I just got to see Batman doing some cool shit. But in my head, I was like, this isn't the Batman '89 or Batman Returns Batman. This is like a multiverse Michael Keaton for me. Because, yeah, I'm getting into spoilers now, but this film's got a third act problem. The third act of this film's terrible, and the effects are really, really bad. And it just takes place in nondescript desert, CGI land. Just get everyone on a green screen. Everything looks really fakey fake. As I said, some of the worst CGI I've seen in a long, long time. And ultimately, the film boils down to the part where Batman dies. Batman dies twice in this film, and a good few other times off camera as well. They get to a point where during the battle, Supergirl dies and Batman dies, and they want to keep repeating time, keep reversing time. It's almost like Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat. They keep trying to change it to keep them alive, but they keep dying. So I had to watch Michael Keaton die twice on screen in this film, which broke my damn heart. And this is what I mean. Like, if this is in continuity now, based on the ending of this film, Michael Keaton's gone. Based on the ending of this, if this is the Michael Keaton Batman from '89 and Returns, Batman's demise in this film is getting bodied by the tanky Kryptonian from Man of Steel. That's how '89 Batman dies. I'm not okay with that. That's just crap. It's crap. There's kind of a I hesitate to even say antagonist in this film because there isn't really an antagonist. I think it's like Dark Flash or something like that. It's called, and it's just like this really fucked up Flash that's constantly tried to change the events of that instance. But he does something in the film where he kills a character which would make himself not exist, and he does that, and he blinks out of existence. But it's like, well, how did you even exist in the first place? Because you would have had to have existed to get to that. Time's weird, and I don't get it, and it's crap. And yeah, and Supergirl's off at the end of this film too. So they kind of just dispatch with all of them, really. All of this talk that this film was going to reset the new and set us up for the new DCU is just absolute bullshit. And you can tell that James Gunn's just putting on a brave face and just trying to just that whole like PR thing. He ain't gonna come out and say this film's terrible, or oh no, this film's not gonna play into my films at all, because they're trying to market this shit. He's in deep now with DC, and they probably say, look, just like, we know this film's a piece of shit, lie through your fucking teeth, just do what you can to endorse it. We'll do the same for Aquaman. Oh yeah, they're still going to be part of my new universe. Ezra Miller could still crop back up. You're never going to see Ezra Miller Flash again. You're never going to hear them harken back to this film or Aquaman. It's going to be done, it's going to be scrapped, and it's going to be rebooted. And that's it. That's like the be all and end all. But in terms of the cameos of this film, as I mentioned, it's just all done in CGI. You get like Christopher Reeve Superman. You get the old Supergirl as well from like the 80s. Or was it into the 90s? I can't remember. I think it was 80s. You get a very blink and you'll miss it Batman 60s world that shows up, and they're just these like spheres, like these CGI spheres, and everyone's these low res CGI character, and they just look terrible. You've got the really, really old George Reeves Superman, Christopher Reeves Superman. They even do Nicolas Cage Superman fighting a giant spider, because that was going to be the original plot for that film, which I think later on got reworked into Wild Wild West with the giant robot spider in that, if I remember rightly. I think it was the same writer or the same producer or something. So yeah, like, and then even General Zod isn't that imposing and is only in it for a bit. So I feel like the trailer's kind of sold as a film that we never really got. It's a film that tries to balance all of these things, and it cripples under its own weight. There's a few jokes in there that some might find humorous, but Ezra Miller isn't a good leading man. He is a terrible Flash. He's a terrible Barry Allen, and I hope he never works in Hollywood again. I really this is it. It's the final straw. The fact that this film still gets put out is absolutely laughable to me. Yet other people can do stuff. Like Johnny Depp gets accused of something, and he's dropped by the same company, by Warner Brothers. Amber Heard is still going to be in Aquaman 2. Johnny Depp gets shit canned from Fantastic Beasts. And yet Ezra Miller can commit all of these crimes and be found guilty of them and confess to them and still get put in a multi-million-dollar movie and make all of the money from it. It's no justice in the world. That's Hollywood for you, and that's how Hollywood's always going to be. But I think I think Warner Brothers were just between a rock and a hard place with this one. I think they dropped all of this money on it, and it's almost like Macbeth. There's a quote from Macbeth which I can't remember verbatim, but it's after Macbeth's killed a whole bunch of people, and he says something like, we're so steeped in blood at this point. Like, we've waded out into, we've just got to see it through to the end now. We can't undo it. We're this far in, go for broke. And that's what they've done. They've spent all millions and millions on this film. Everything was working against it. And they've just like, look, slap that product together, get it out there, and let's hope it just makes a bit of money to, to at least break even. But it's got to do a lot to break even. Yeah, so like the Flash's parents have been recast in this, which was just strange. So it's kind of half in the DCEU and kind of not. There's the ending, he resets the timeline, and then it turns out Bruce Wayne in this new universe is George Clooney, which is, this is what I mean. If this is, as they keep claiming, oh, this is setting up our new universe, blah 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 blah. Well, when we get to Batman Brave and the Bold, then done by James Gunn, are we going to have George Clooney as Batman? Because if this film ties into that one, then the new Bruce Wayne of the world is George Clooney, and it's like, haha, that actually got a big laugh, and I did chuckle at that. I was like, Batman and Robin, yeah. But yeah, shit. Like, I don't know what else to say. This film was pretty much exactly as I thought it was going to be. I didn't go in with any kind of like lofty expectations or anything like that. I've pretty much hated all of the other DCEU films, knowing that it's getting rebooted anyway. This just feels like it's in its death throes, and yeah, there's some really bad continuity in there with stuff and shit that doesn't make sense. Towards the final act as well, where you've got the two Flashes trying to save the day, and then Batman and Supergirl die, and they said, right, we need to turn back time and we need to have another go at it. And when they repeat the event, it looks like there's now 4 Flashes. There's the 2 from the first iteration of the timeline, and then they're kind of doubled up, and there's another 2 of them. So I'm thinking, well, there's now 4 Flashes in this world, isn't there? But I don't know if that's actually ever the case. There's another bit of continuity where Batman's Batwing gets shot down, and the wing's gone, and he can't fly it, and he's going to kamikaze it straight into General Zod's ship. And he does it, and the shields are up on Zod's ship, and he crashes into it, and it blows up, and Batman's dead. They then repeat the timeline, and it cuts back to Batman saying, I'm going to take out Zod's ship. So at that point, his wing would have been shot, and then the tanky Kryptonian jumps onto the Batwing, but the wings are both fine this time. So that doesn't make any sense, because the wing would still be shot down, which is the whole point. He was going to crash it into General Zod's ship, so that didn't make any sense. There's other things, people's powers. I'm confused at people's power levels in this film. You've got the Flash, who can phase through walls, like Shadowcat from the X-Men. Can he do that? Is that in the comics? I don't know if the Flash can phase through material. I thought he could just run fast. But apparently he can phase through walls and shit. And I was thinking, would there be any opportunities in all of the other DCU films where the Flash could have phased through a wall, which would have made things a hell of a lot easier? Probably. Again, I don't know if that's his power set. I'm not sure. There's another bit where they say, okay, so the Flash goes back in time. The Flash got his powers by standing next to chemicals, and a lightning bolt hit, struck him with lightning, and then the chemicals fell on him and gave him a chemical bath as he was getting struck by lightning, and that gave him his powers. Then when he changes time and he meets the other Barry Allen, he's like, the other Barry Allen needs to get powers as well. So he takes him back to the same laboratory where he was. The lightning bolt hits, but it hits both of them, and it gives Flash powers to the one who didn't have them before, and the original Flash who already had the powers, it takes his powers away. Later on in the film, when he meets Batman, he says, I need to get my powers back, and I need to be standing next to chemicals, and I need to get struck by lightning. And Michael Keaton's like, I can help you with that. And I thought, oh my God, we're in Gotham. Are we going to see Ace Chemicals again? And I thought, well, no, Batman blew that up in Batman, in '89. He blew that up. Maybe they've rebuilt it. And then the Flash is like strapped to this Frankenstein's monster Van Helsing kind of contraption with all of the cables and like, it's alive, like that kind of thing. And I thought it was a bat satellite dish at first. It's a bat kite. It's a weather conductor. It's like Back to the Future. And lightning will strike it and travel down, and it'll electrocute the Flash. But it's a bat shape, and I don't know why I found that so funny, because Batman has bat everything. Why should I be surprised that he has a bat kite? But I was like, why can't it just be like a weather device? Why have you got to put a Batman emblem on it? It just feels so pointless. But there we go. And he gets struck by lightning, and it doesn't do anything. And he's like, hit me with more lightning. And then Supergirl shows up, and she picks his charred, burnt body up off the floor, and she flies him straight up into the stormy night sky, gets hit with lightning, and he's like char-grilled right now. He's been hit by 2 bolts of lightning, and he's pretty much dead. And then he rejuvenates, and he's fine. And again, that's another power. Apparently the Flash can heal himself, which I call bullshit, because didn't he get like cut in the leg or something in Justice League, and he couldn't heal it back up? I don't remember that the Flash can rapidly heal himself like Wolverine, because there's other moments in the film where there's one bit where he gets shot through the leg and he's limping, and it's like, well, apparently if you're the Flash, you can heal, you're fine. There's another bit where he gets stabbed through the arm with this giant massive claw of metal, and he doesn't heal back up. So is the Flash immortal? Is that what we're saying now? So he can phase through walls, which was never established that he could do that before, as far as I'm aware. And he can now fully regenerate himself, but only when it's convenient for the plot. So that's weird. But yeah, the whole, so he gets struck by a couple of bolts of lightning, but there's no chemicals involved. He's like, I was stood next to chemicals and I got hit by lightning. And they hit him with lightning twice, but it didn't do anything. So I'm actually really, I think it was like the spark of electricity from the other Flash's hand that gave him his power. So I don't know. The rules of this thing just make no sense. Zod's in it briefly. Theor is in it briefly. Supergirl doesn't really get much of a character. I didn't think she was played exceptionally well. She was just really boring and just kind of emo-ish and just fucking miserable. She looked great in the outfit, though. I will say that. She looked damn good in the outfit, but just nothing to her character. I just didn't give a shit. Ezra Miller's terrible, and that's the bulk of our cast right there. Ben Affleck's barely in it, as I mentioned. Michael Keaton is the star of the film, to me, but even he's only in a handful of scenes. And there are some cool Batman scenes when he's flying the Batwing and it's going like it's cool. Like shit like that is cool to me. And I did go like, fuck yeah, like Batman. When he jumps out the plane and the Danny Elfman theme kicks in. And that's just member berries. That's just loving Michael Keaton's Batman. That's just loving that theme song. But beyond that, it's just the worst things in this film for me are Ezra Miller as the Flash, an awful third act, and the CGI, the visuals. Like, it banks on the visuals so much, and it looks awful. Words can't express how bad the visuals are in this film. There is some of the most. This will go down in history as some of the worst CGI. Genuinely, like up there on all these videos you see, like the top 10 worst CGI shots of any film, this will be among them. Truly awful stuff with this. But fate was just against this film from the beginning. Creative differences, directors dropping out, page one rewrites of the script, Ezra Miller being a complete monster, COVID, um, stars getting fired, projects getting cancelled, the DCU getting scrapped. It's just kind of a pointless film, really. And then the post credit scene, it is a cameo from another character, and it's utterly pointless. It's not anything related to the film. It's not funny. It's just really awkward. It feels out of place. It feels like a scene that was cut from like another cut of the movie or something like that. Yeah, it's just really, really bad. But I wanted to go for my boy Batman. I'll follow any Batman project through the good and the bad. Um, we've kind of got some good going with oh god, what's his name? Robert Pattinson's Batman. I'm interested to see where that trilogy goes. We've got Batman the Brave and the Bold, I guess, is the next live action film that's coming out from Batman as well, which will be this new improved DCU. We'll see if people are still interested in comic book movies at that point, but yeah, just go and see Spider-Verse if you want to see a film about multiverse done well. Just go and see that. Just go and see Across the Multiverse. If you're a fan of Michael Keaton Batman, then you know what, go and check it out. You might get a kick out of seeing him again, but I don't know. I don't think that's worth the price of admission for this one. But there are some cool Batman moments that just play on that nostalgia. But I'm gonna stick with Tim Burton's Batman '89 and Batman Returns. Hopefully, one day, if this does well, or people want Michael Keaton to come back, of course, they're doing Beetlejuice 2. I think that's Tim Burton's next project. If he's well received from that, on that bit of a resurgence that he's got at the moment, then hell, maybe he might even do another Batman film. But I think with the Robert Pattinson films happening, which is a carryover from the older stuff, but then James Gunn wanting to start his new thing, I don't think they're going to muddy the waters and have 3 different Batman on the go at any given time. But yeah, anyway, that'll do it for my review on The Flash. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can mention in this film. It's just a bunch of like continuity things, really, that just didn't really make sense to me. Like relating to powers and things they establish in the film. There's probably other ones that I'd remember if I'd have written some notes or watched it again, but yeah, I'm done. I'm done with DC projects. The DCEU was a horrific failure from beginning to end and was fucked from the start. And it's embarrassing to see them just still trying to cobble it all together because there's nothing to cobble at all. It's done. One more dying gasp with Aquaman 2 later this year, and then we can put this whole messy thing to bed. Anyway, that'll do it for my thoughts on The Flash. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on The Flash as well. My mouse has just lost connection, so this is going to be very awkward. Hopefully, I'll be able to end this live stream. Let's just see. There we go. Let me know your thoughts on The Flash. Have you seen it? Did you enjoy it more than I did? Do let me know. And please do consider subscribing to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. The next big film, oh boy, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is another film that I'm absolutely dreading. It's going to be another old, washed up legacy character that's going to be belittled and talked down by a strong, independent feminist, which is going to be wonderful to watch for 2 hours, 20 minutes. But you'll get to hear me rant on that film. I already know it's going to be a rant. I won't enjoy it. It's going to be a rant. And unfortunately, I've got to go and watch it. The pain after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was not deep enough, it seems. But yeah, that'll do it for me. Have a very good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time you're watching this, and I will see you guys on the next video. Take care, everyone.